I'm currently sitting here in Visual Studio, which is a program that programmers use to write programs. So let's just choose one of these. For example, Visual Basic. Let's say we were going to program something in Visual Basic. You'll see two sections underneath here, one called Windows Universal and one called Windows Desktop. There is where we make the difference between whether we're going to create a Universal or UWP app or a traditional desktop app. Now, I'm just going to go ahead and go back to the Visual Basic main one here and show you some things. If I click on Blank App Universal Windows, you can see this is a project for a single page Universal Windows Platform app that has no predefined controls or layout. Now, there are other options that have similar things. Here's some other Universal Windows types, but that's the simplest one up here, and you can see that that is designed for just making a UWP app. Now, if I go down here to Windows Forms app, you'll see that this is a project for creating an application with a Windows user interface. So this is a standard application that that one might create. You'll also see some things in here called WPF, or Windows Presentation Foundation. This was an earlier form of UWP apps. I believe it was used in Windows 8. Didn't really go very far, and very few people are probably programming in that framework. However, Universal Windows program apps are the ones that you would design if you want to sell something or give away something in the Microsoft Store. All right, so you can see that there are specific places for creating those different types of apps. Now, these UWP apps don't run directly in Windows. In other words, they run on something called a platform, a runtime platform. This is a program that sits on top of Windows and interprets the code so that that program can run in Windows. So I would have a different runtime on, say, a phone, a Windows phone, a Windows tablet, a Windows laptop, and a Windows desktop. That runtime platform would be different on each one, but it would allow me to run one set of code on all of those platforms, on all of those runtimes, so that I can run the same program on a phone that I can, say, on a desktop. That's the idea of these things. It's not a new concept. We've been doing this with things like Java and that sort of thing for a long time. Flash is another one where we've done that. So you can think of this as sort of a player, and this player can be a little bit different on each machine, allowing only one program to run on all of those different formats. The thing about these is they don't typically have an executable file. Now, they may have one or they may not. And they don't all install in the same way. They don't install in the program files folder or the program files x86 folder where you would typically find standard applications. So you can't just go out and find an executable, click on the executable, and run that app. You pretty much have to run them. Well, there are other ways, but you typically will just run them straight from the program list here. So, for example, I have Sketchable here. This is a UWP app, and I put this on here just for demonstration purposes. But if I were to, well, now that I launched it, I have to wait before I can minimize it, don't I? Okay, let's get back out of this thing if I can figure out how to get back out of it. And that's one of the things about these UWP apps. They can be a little tricky to get into and out of. If I just say, well, normally in most applications I'd have something here where I can go to the folder. So for example, in Firefox here, if I click More, I can say Open File Location. Well, you notice I don't have that option here in this. There's no file location given. And that's because there's an XML file that determines how this thing runs. And I could figure it out. There's some gymnastics you can go through to kind of figure this kind of stuff out. But if I just go click on an executable, the app won't run. It has to be launched from inside of Windows via that player. So those are UWP apps. They were designed for the Microsoft Store or the Windows Store. It keeps changing its name. And they are not just a standalone installable application like the ones you're used to seeing with traditional apps.